So, of course, the big news coming out of the Purdue game, unfortunately, is Trey Potts. And he had just 3 amazing games in relief of Mohammed Ibrahim, and ripped off roughly 150 yards in those 3 games. I believe I saw a stat where he was 12th in the nation in rushing yards per game. I know that you don't know anything about the severity of the injury or what the injury is, because PJ Fleck addressed that and is appropriate. That is up for the family and the individual to disclose to the public if they care to. But just in regards to the impact, because we've got possibly the best running back in the Big Ten. He goes down in week 1. He's tearing through Ohio State at that point. We know what he's capable of. Scored 15 touchdowns in a half a season last year. And now Trey Potts, who was just getting into his groove, ripping off 100-yard games, he goes down. What does that featured back position look like now?
Well, first off, thankfully, Trey's okay. He was in the hospital for 6 days, got out on last Friday, is back in Minnesota doing well. PJ Fleck said yesterday. So Minnesota really just trying to support Trey right now as he battles back. And right now, I don't really know a lot about long-term, but he's out for the rest of the season, like you said. So now with Mohammed Ibrahim out for the season with the injury he had against Ohio State right at the start of the season, now with Trey going down, Bucky Irving, true freshman, will be taking over the running back duties. And he doesn't have a lot of experience, but staff is really excited about his potential. I've talked to a few people about just the night scrimmages that they do on Sunday. And he popped off this run where he broke like 5 tackles and redirected across the field. And that was the moment where they said, okay, this guy needs some playing time now. And so he got some action against Colorado and really flashed. He's shifty back, really elusive, explosive, hitting the hole, and he's good as a receiver. So he'll step into that. And then the number 2 back after that is Kai Thomas, one of the top players in Kansas a couple of recruiting cycles ago. And he's more of the physical back, will be the guy between the tackles to complement Bucky Irving. And then Bryce Williams, who's played a lot of football for Minnesota before, can come in and provide a veteran presence. Cam Wiley's another option, but Minnesota's definitely depleted at running back. But there's been a lot of things with this offense. Chris Ottman-Bell got hurt right before the season started, and he's missed time throughout the year battling back from that injury. Dalen Wright had a loved one pass away, and he was away from the team for a while, so now he's back. But Minnesota's been trying to navigate people going in and out offensively, and they've had some struggles. They're just trying to figure out how to get the rhythm going offensively, because it feels like things are going relatively well on defense. They're getting better every week. Special teams-wise, they're number 12 right now in the nation in field position margin. And Mark Crawford was special teams player of the week after the Purdue matchup. So everything seems to be going pretty well in those areas. It's just figuring out this offense for Minnesota right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to hit you with one thing, and then I'll let you and Greg just mix it up, and you guys can talk matchups between the Huskers and the Gophers. You mentioned you gave us a scan of the offense there, but it starts, of course, with Tanner Morgan, who's got as much or more experience than anybody in the Big Ten. He's only thrown, I believe, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks this year. He's just barely over 50% passing, around 52. We got accustomed to and expected the kind of production he gave everyone 2 years ago with 30 touchdown passes and only 7 picks. So how would you evaluate his play versus the supporting cast and how they've factored or impacted those numbers?
It's been really interesting because the passing game hasn't had a lot of volume. Minnesota's been a heavy rushing team. You look at early downs, for example, they're a 70+% rushing team on first and second down, which they haven't been able to run the ball efficiently in those situations either. So that has put the offense in less favorable positions. Tanner Morgan's been behind the sticks. And you look at the Bowling Green game, for example, the pass rush of Bowling Green was just getting there all day long. He was pressured on 45.5% of his dropbacks. So it's been something every single game, whether it's Tanner maybe missing a couple throws he'd like to have back or drops, and then the passing game just not being able to adjust. I believe that Minnesota, out of the bye week, they will be looking at a lot of different tendencies, maybe adjusting and becoming more balanced on early downs. They need some high percentage throws in the offense because they just cannot find a rhythm in the passing game. And that's something that Minnesota probably was working on during the bye week. And another tendency that I found is they use 12 personnel out, 2 tight end sets. in 2019 and 2020. It was about a third of their total snaps last year. They're only using it at about a 12% clip right now. And I feel like that is an opportunity. They've been relying upon heavy packages throughout the season. Maybe they scale that back and try to spread things out and get the ball in space to their playmakers. But, Curtis Dunlap today, we found out offensive lineman, right guard, entering the transfer portal. He was splitting time with Blaze Andries at right guard, and his total snap share was higher because he was in on the heavy personnel packages. He hadn't played very well early in the season, so Blaze will get the starting reps moving forward, and then Axel Rushmeyer and Carter Shaw will be the first players off the bench, and Axel will probably be the sixth offensive lineman if Minnesota uses that package. So that's something to monitor, that Curtis Dunlap hit the transfer portal today.
Yeah, Greg, anything for Daniel in regards to just if you guys want to start mixing it up on any matchup questions you got?
Well, what came to my mind was, it was kind of funny when we were talking about, Minnesota's running back situation, and Eric Shenander, Nebraska's defensive coordinator, was asked about that today. And, it jumps out to me what he says, this, we don't know about this guy. He might be the best running back in the Big Ten, so they have to be ready for that. Just like everybody, it's next man up mentality. You get your chance. You're gonna get in there, and you're gonna take the opportunity and make the most of it. So, both teams have had their share of injury problems. So, when Daniel's talking about, obviously Minnesota's, a heavy run team, and they've found a lot of success against Nebraska with the run game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the past, PJ Flex, they've schemed Nebraska. They've targeted Nebraska's linebackers and really exploited Nebraska's linebackers in previous years, which now all of a sudden is a strength in Nebraska's defense. So I'm kind of curious to see what kind of wrinkles that Minnesota has, in mind, because obviously they're going to come up with something, because most teams that have played Nebraska now are not even allowing Nebraska's pass rush to develop. They're getting rid of the ball so quickly. Michigan came with a few wrinkles last week where Jim Harbaugh all of a sudden was including his tight end in little crossing patterns and stuff that kind of took Nebraska off guard. And, that was a very effective weapon that they used against Nebraska last Saturday. So, I don't know. My question, I guess, is what kind of wrinkles do you see, PJ Fleck coming up with on Saturday to, keep Nebraska guessing again?
It's super interesting that you mentioned that the rushing success that Minnesota's had against Nebraska. And you look at the past, the outside zone has been the area that they've tried to exploit, the linebackers, like you said, and the front four, getting them moving sideline to sideline. I still think that's something that will be a heavy part of the scheme. Minnesota has dashed in motion a lot to try to displace defenders, and maybe the play action game gets going. I think you got to get the ball out in space more frequently with this offense to try to find an early down rhythm. That's been the biggest problem. This offense, every time they look like they're going to have a rhythm, it just is plagued by a drop or missed throw, something like that. The thing that I'm watching in this game matchup wise is Teddy Prohaska being out, and you shift and Turner Cochran over to left tackle. You got Bryce Benhart at right tackle. Boye Mafe had a great game against Benhart last year. Sack, multiple pressures, forced fumble, huge game. Mafe's a really good player. In Minnesota, you look at what the bread and butter of that defense has been this year. It's been inside interior push from their defensive tackles. Niles Pinckney, D'Angelo Carter's playing at an all Big Ten level right now, one of the better defensive tackles in the entire conference. And then you look at Thomas Rush and Boye Mafe, both creating a lot of pressure from the edge spots. That's the matchup that I'm watching the most, because Corcoran's given up a team-high 33 pressures. Benhart's given up 24. Nebraska's pass blocking efficiency ratings have been pretty low. So, that is the one thing that I'm watching for in this game specifically. Does Minnesota's pass rush have a lot of success against Nebraska's offense? And I think it starts by, I really like the way Nebraska runs their offense right now. Misdirection, option looks. embedded within the offensive system. You have that split zone option, you got the split option, you got a mix of design QB runs in there and zone reads, and then they do a really good job of mixing and pairing that up with the play action and motioning players. And I love that arc release down on in the goal line there to set up the touchdown for Martinez near the end of the game. Like, they do a really good job of using motion. And that's very interesting to me because I've looked at the trends in college football this year. Motion is up in college football. And Nebraska does a great job of using that to their advantage and displacing defenders. So Minnesota's eye discipline is key. I think Minnesota, if they're approaching this game, is like, okay, you got to be able to stop Nebraska on first and second down. You can't allow too many explosive plays and get them behind the sticks. Minnesota, they have the fifth best opponent passing play success rate on passing down. So that's 2nd and 8+. That's 3rd and 5+. They've done a really good job of limiting opponent success when teams have been behind the stick. So that's something that I'm watching as well.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, no, I was wondering too. I mean, it's kind of I mentioned a little something earlier that this Minnesota-Nebraska matchup, in my mind, is starting to turn into a little bit of a rivalry now, especially after, since PJ Fleck got to Minnesota and kind of reinvigorated things. And I think Nebraska, last couple of years getting beat up by Minnesota has really gotten under their skin a little bit. And dare I say that Nebraska may be thinking of Minnesota more of a rival than maybe Iowa nowadays. So I was just kind of wondering what Minnesota thinks of Nebraska.
Wow, so Nebraska fans would consider that a bigger rivalry than Iowa right now. That's how you would say the fan base is?
Well, I'm thinking the team, not the fan base.
Okay, team, not the fan base. I'm like, holy cow, that's a big deal right there.
Oh no, I think the team is they want to beat Minnesota more than I have ever seen them, and think of Minnesota more of a peer than as like an easy win that they might think of, in years past.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Minnesota has had a lot of success against Nebraska, and it's probably more Nebraska just having a chip on its shoulder, trying to, relinquish some of those wins that Minnesota had in dominating fashion. And a lot of those games, you look at last year, Minnesota being down like 30 players going into Nebraska and winning last year in the way that they did. And, that type of a game.
Nobody gave them any kind of a chance to win last year.
Yeah. And so I do see it with the fans too. It's like the Frost versus Fleck too, because I feel like the fan base and the coaches, they just kind of collide with their personality types because there's two stark contrasts.
Right.
So there's definitely that rivalry to it. And I just feel like fans in Minnesota and Nebraska, they always seem to have a good time. Like it's a good fan base rivalry, I'd say. It's not in the level of Iowa and Wisconsin for Minnesota, but it's become a really good rivalry in the West because, everybody looks forward to the game and loves having Nebraska. I think people enjoy, the way that, Minnesota has played against Nebraska. Now, if Nebraska starts winning some games here, then it becomes a rivalry the other way too.
And I think it kind of goes back, if you look at that first Big Ten media days when Scott Frost was first Nebraska's coach, and PJ Fleck was getting a bunch of publicity right then at that time. And I think that there was a little spark in between those two coaches right there with a little bit of, hey, they should be talking about me, not you right now. So then I think also I want to know what kind of a crowd are you expecting? I mean, we're thinking that there's going to be quite a few Nebraska fans traveling up to Minneapolis. Are you expecting the Minnesota crowd to show up, or are they kind of on the fence about attending the game?
I think fans will show up for this game. Start of the Big Ten, there's been a lot of ups and downs this year. PJ Fleck said it. This is like one of the years where he's never coached a team where it's been up and down, the spectrums of things that they had go on. And it's been a weird year, but The students have really showed up for games this year. There's a lot of interest in Minnesota football with the students, and it's been 11 a.m. game early on every single week. Another 11 a.m. game, but the students have done a nice job of showing up, and fans, they want to see what happens out of the bye week here. Big Ten play beginning, nice matchup against Nebraska here, and want to see if Minnesota makes some adjustments, because in the past you look back at Minnesota and you go, okay, PJ Fleck and his staff, they're pretty vanilla with the non-conference scheming. They go in, they do what they need to do, they run the ball, they try to smash them all, play physical. Got burned against Bowling Green, taken down to the wire against Miami of Ohio. Like, there is always, as someone who covers this team, is like, there is never a game where you're like, okay, non-conference, Minnesota's just going to come out and do what they need to do. It seems like all those games are interesting. Even in 2019, I mean, the Georgia Southern game, Minnesota had to convert that long third down and go on a big drive, and then the drama in the Fresno State game. Like, Minnesota, they will have some wrinkles in this game. They're coming out of a bye week. They've saved a lot of stuff. Does the offense open up with the running backs being out, with Mo and Trey being unavailable now for the rest of the season? Minnesota has to adapt its offense. They got to find some early down rhythm. They got to be able to get the passing game more involved and suit the scheme to Tanner Morgan's strengths. And Mike Sanford Jr.'s had time to figure this offense out. Hopefully the staff has added some wrinkles that Nebraska won't expect.